Panama seems to be one of those countries where people, especially those who move here, they either really love it or they really hate it. But almost everybody who comes here from North America runs into certain frustrations that could drive you absolutely crazy. But I've noticed that those frustrations really come down to just a few things, and they're really mistakes that foreigners make when they move to Panama. So today on the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show, we're going to talk about the 9 mistakes that foreigners make when they move to Panama and a little bit about how to avoid them. That's all coming up right now. Welcome back to the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, you'll find new videos to help liberty-minded entrepreneurs and investors just like you break free from the system, pay less tax, and live anywhere in the world they want. So go ahead and hit that subscribe and that notification button, and you'll never miss your chance to find more freedom in this unfree world. One of the first mistakes that people run into when they move here and they start getting set up is that they expect to find all of the brands and all of the conveniences that they find back home. But you can't expect that. This is a different country. Now, that being said, Panama is rapidly expanding and developing, especially in the city, but even in the areas outside of the city. And more you can get the North American brands. You see more and more conveniences available, but they're not always there. So one of the big tips that I give to everybody is if you go to a Price Mart or you go to a grocery store and you see a brand that you like, and especially if it's something that you hadn't seen before, stock up on it because you might not see it again. You also might not know where to find things that are here but are not in the places that you would expect. So when you notice them, make note of it, buy a lot. The next mistake that I see people making, and it invades every aspect of your life, is expecting that people are going to speak English. And I think this expectation might come from some of the promotional literature that's out there. They say, oh, there's tons of English spoken. That's not really entirely true. Yes, there is a lot of English spoken here, but still in your day-to-day activities, you're not going to find people who speak English. So if you are dealing with your car or you have workers doing repairs or even things like banking and immigration, if you learn Spanish first, at least a rudimentary amount, you're going to find life so much easier. You don't have to be totally fluent. I've lived here for years and I'm embarrassingly bad at Spanish, but knowing some is going to make your life a million times easier. Another mistake that I see, and fortunately I don't see it a lot from people who've actually moved here, but more a question that gets asked, is coming to Panama and then expecting to find a job right away, especially a job that you can live on. First of all, getting a job isn't necessarily easy, although it is possible. But Panamanian salaries are nothing like what you're used to back home. And yes, Panamanians can live on these salaries, but the standard of living is not what you're used to. It is possible to get a job with multinational corporations that will pay really well. However, generally speaking, you're not moving here to find one of those jobs. You're finding those jobs and then moving here because you have the job. The big mistake that I see people making all of the time, and you'll make it a few times, is believing your Spanish instructors when they tell you that mañana means tomorrow. You're going to hear mañana a lot. When can you do this work? Mañana. When are you going to have this part in stock? Mañana. But if you make the mistake of believing that mañana means tomorrow, you are going to be pulling your hair out. Mañana means at some point in the future, but definitely not today. And if you think it means anything other than that, you're in for a big disappointment. The next mistake that I see people making once they've moved here, and it's almost related to the same thing, but that's expecting that immigration paperwork, and generally any paperwork for any type of government work, whether it be immigration, banking, which is closely tied to the government, paying fines, paying taxes, any of those things, expecting that to be easy and fast is a big mistake that's going to frustrate you to no end. Panama likes its paperwork. The government likes its paperwork. There's a very slow-moving bureaucracy in place. Things are getting better in a lot of ways, but doing any type of government process like immigration, buying a house, anything like that is going to be time-consuming. And you need to be prepared for that, and you need to keep your patience and your sense of humor, because if you don't, all you're going to do is get upset with people you're dealing with and start being rude, and that's not going to help you get anywhere. So go in, Be open-minded and just allow the process to take its place. The next big mistake that I see people making, and it's totally unrelated to the others, it's mistaking just how hot Panama can get. Panama is a tropical country, so I don't know why this is so difficult to get or why people complain about it. But there's some people who come here and they just can't handle the heat. Bring your sunscreen, bring your hats. Know that it is summer year round, so the temperature doesn't vary that much, but there are days where the sun just feels so much more intense that you feel like you could reach out and touch it, and just prepare for that heat. There are places you can go that can have a lot less heat, but even those are tropical countries, so they're gonna get warm sometimes. A big mistake that I see people making, and it's one that I've actually seen people leave Panama in disgust for, is making the mistake of not understanding the culture enough and the language enough and just the general place enough to know when you're being ripped off. Generally speaking, Panamanians are friendly, they're gonna help you out whenever they can, and they're great people. But as an Americans, we can be seen as rich, and in a lot of cases, and in most cases, we probably are when you comparatively. And so therefore you have a bit of a target on your back for people who realize you don't understand how Panama works, don't realize what's going on in Panama, and therefore they will take advantage of it. This is especially prevalent in the taxi industry, where if you're getting picked up from a hotel, or you're going to a hotel, or you're going to or from a tourist attraction, whether that be the Parkway at Amador or the Panama Canal, any of these tourist locations, the taxis can try to rip you off, often in a big way. So as you're using the Panama taxi service, as you're looking at Panama, learn the ropes, learn what people try to use and take advantage of so that you can push back in these cases. There's nothing that stops you from arguing. In the case of taxi, learn what the zones are and don't accept an artificially inflated fare, or even better yet, take an Uber and you're not going to run into that problem at all. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people run into in Panama is buying or renting an apartment or a house without actually seeing it first. And I don't understand why this happens. It's not something you would do at home, but for some reason, coming to Panama, they look at these glossy brochures or they read a classified ad and they believe what they're reading. And then they turn up to someplace and have a long-term lease, or they've purchased and are sadly disappointed. Your idea of what is beautiful or what is livable might be very, very different from whoever wrote an ad. So don't do it. Leave yourself flexibility and check out the place in person before you sign a lease or before you buy it. If you're buying in pre-construction, make sure you do your due diligence on the developer, because you can be sadly disappointed, and that can cost thousands and thousands of dollars if you make that mistake. And the final mistake is not knowing what to do if you run into trouble or you get lost, especially in the city. And this is really an easy one to avoid. Always be aware of what your situation is. Know that especially in the city, there are police everywhere. They're very willing to help. But another resource that I've found is very useful, especially if you're lost or if you need a jump start because your car broke down, those kind of things, is to talk to taxi drivers. Now, be aware though, when you talk to those taxi drivers, be prepared to pay for any services. Don't expect any favors. If they give you a favor, tip them anyway, because they really deserve it. These guys are hardworking. But use the taxi service, use the police, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Even if your Spanish isn't that good, people will generally try and help you out and get you out of any type of situation that you've gotten yourself into. Panama is a beautiful and it's a laid-back country. And the people, they're friendly and they're helpful. They're really just great. I mean, it's just a great place to be. But if you come into Panama with these expectations of things being like they are at home, and without doing sort of your groundwork to know how to avoid the 9 mistakes that we talked about today, then you're going to end up with at least enough frustration that you've burnt so many bridges that you'll never want to come back. So just be prepared. Do your due diligence, do your homework, and know what to expect. Know that it's not what you face at home. And if you're looking for any information on how to move to Panama, what living in Panama is like, how to obtain second citizenship, or really anything about building your plan B in life, check out the video that's on your screen right now. This is Glenn from the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show, and I'll see you over there.